Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more interesting stories like these. Now, let's get into today's story video. AITA for kicking my husband out of the delivery room. My spouse, 24 male, and I, 23 female, just had our first child. My husband was ecstatic, and he was really supportive and attentive throughout the pregnancy. The only difference is that he grew a little fascinated with watching YouTube and TikTok videos of men playing pranks on their wives when they were in labor. I didn't mind at first, but then he began casually joking about performing things he saw in the videos because he thought it would be hilarious. I made it plain that I disliked them and requested him not to do anything similar to what he saw. He agreed and continued to make light of it from time to time, but I dismissed it since I trusted him and assumed nothing would come of it. The big day arrived, and I'd been in labor for 8 hours, 12 HR total labor. I just completed another round of contractions when my husband let out the loudest, turned to me and said, "What the hell have you been eating, op? It has a foul odor." That instantly struck me as one of the pranks in the videos. I ordered that he leave the room because I was enraged that he was not doing what I had instructed him not to do. He began protesting, claiming it was all a joke, but I persevered and thankfully, the nurse assisted in getting him out. I did the final 4 hours of labor by myself since my family lives out of state and I'm not close to my mother-in-law. I informed the nurse he could come back into the room after the birth, and he was furious. He began demanding that I explain why I had booted him out. I explained the situation politely, but he was enraged. He hasn't communicated with me in a week. His mother is siding with him, claiming that I was a jerk for pushing him out. Normally, he would protect me against her, but this time he agreed entirely. I may be the jerk since I know how much he was looking forward to being there for our first child's delivery, particularly when he got to cut the cord, but I still booted him out and refused to allow him back in. The nurse asked me many times whether I wanted him back, but I always replied no. AITA for evicting my spouse for doing a foolish prank that he promised not to do. Edit. I just wanted to thank everyone for their encouragement and comfort on here, as well as address some concerns and provide an update. Questions. He's been connecting with the infant, but it's not really helping. When he wanted to hold her, he would just remove her from my arms, or if MIL was around, he would ask her to grab the baby. And although I know I already submitted this response, I wanted to repost it here in case anybody missed it. I would have allowed him back into the delivery room if he had been remorseful in any manner, and the nurse checked on him, but he was pouting and moaning since I had done so. Update. It's been a difficult first week, but my mother came this morning to assist. I spoke to my husband, as best I could since he is still unhappy and ignoring me, and told him how I was feeling depressed and nervous since we brought the baby home, and that I understood why he was upset but begged him to please see my side. He told me that I had no right to send him out and that our daughter would one day resent me for making him miss her birth. I burst out weeping and asked him to kindly talk things out rather than utter things in anger. He refused, claiming that since I was living under his house, he had the ultimate decision and calling me a C for forcing him out of the delivery room. I didn't say anything further to him. Instead, I began collecting myself and the baby's belongings and intended to go. He raged at me, telling me I couldn't take anything he'd paid for. I hadn't worked since the epidemic began, so I simply got the baby and told my mother we were going. We're staying at a hotel tonight, and we'll travel to my folks' home tomorrow. Sorry for the lengthy post, but I wanted everyone to know what happened. Story 2. AITA for kicking my sister out of my family gathering after comment about adopted son. Some believe I, 32-year-old male, should have handled the matter differently, but I don't see how I'm wrong. Because of some screwed-up events that occurred years ago, my sister, 37 female, and I aren't as close as we used to be. Jessie, 9, was born while I was very young. My ex got pregnant again months later, much to my astonishment. Only I knew it wasn't me since having a baby to care for and provide for had taken away my desire for. And we discovered it was my sister's fiancé, now ex, who was seen behind our backs. It was excruciating. Worst anguish I'd ever felt, yet I attempted to push through it for the sake of my baby. I come from a family of half-siblings, therefore I wanted my kid to have a strong relationship with his half-brother, Keith. Not only were they my ex and my sister's ex, nasty lying cheats, but they were also bad parents. Both were addicted to narcotics, and things only got worse from there. Keith was 3 years old when he was imprisoned. This specific problem with my sister occurred a few years ago. My ex became ill, and she was afraid Keith would wind up in foster care like her, and I didn't want that for him either. I formally adopted him before Mom died when he was 6 years old. At first, not everyone in my family was on board, but he's the sort of child that is impossible not to like, so they warmed up to him. My sister was never like that. She was furious that I had taken her ex-kid fiancés into my household, and I knew why it was terrible, but Keith and Jessie were my top priorities. That's how we became estranged. My birthday was last weekend, and I celebrated with a modest cookout at my house. My parents had worked hard to rebuild our relationship, so they persuaded me to let her come with me so we could talk. I assumed she was okay with Keith, since the three of us are clearly a package deal. When I asked my parents how she felt about Keith, they told me not to worry. As she turned around, I grabbed it once again. However, she was not informed that he would also be there. He couldn't be, could he? He resides there. When my sister arrived, she was enraged to see him. I thought this was family, only what's he doing here? She said emphatically. It was loud enough that he could have easily heard it, but luckily he was playing with his brother. My sister was irritated because my parents had informed her that Keith would not be there, and I was irritated when she informed me she didn't want him here, expecting me to intervene. So I simply informed her she had to go and that she was no longer welcome here. There was some back and forth between her and my parents. I didn't want that type of conversation around my boys, so I forced her go. My mother appears to believe I was a jerk for booting her out of my celebration, rather than attempting to talk things out. As if they transport Keith someplace out of sight while me and her converse. But, to me, what's the sense of us working things out if she still feels this way about my son? This is still generating some friction since I escalated the dispute by forcing her to leave instead of really talking to her. AITA. Update. I wasn't going to write anything, but since the dispute has been partially addressed, why not? This was mostly a problem with my parents, so I decided to call my sister to discuss what to do about them. It was a heated discussion. It's quite tight. She was still angry at me, obviously, and I was enraged at her for her behavior at my party, but at least we managed to stay polite and focus completely on our parents to ensure they don't attempt to pull anything like this again. We decided that none of us would be in each other's lives, due to her difficulties with Keith and my unwillingness to eliminate him since he is such an important part of my life. And we both decided that we needed to talk to them collectively to make our argument. When we spoke with them, we told them they'd have to accept this as the way things would be. Do vacations and festivities the way we've always done them, separately, with one of us missing out or arriving after the other has departed, and they are not permitted to force us to chat or ambush us in the same manner they did before, or they will lose us both forever. They seem to have gotten it in the end. At the very least, they apologized and my sister and I parted ways. Is it completely dreadful? Yes, but that's where life has led us. At the very least, none of us has to be concerned about being duped into another meeting. At least, I hope not. Oh, there was one more thing I wanted to mention. My son. I did see a few comments on whether Keith heard what she said or not, or whether he feigned not to. I was hoping he didn't, since I didn't see a response, but thanks for bringing it out. I didn't want him to internalize it if he did. He did, unfortunately, here. We had a whole talk by ourselves a few nights ago. He didn't want to confess he heard her at first, but kids can tell. These difficult topics are never simple to convey to a child. The best I could say was that she was just furious, and angry people occasionally say hurtful things for no reason. But he's family no matter what. He understands he's my son, that I adore him, and that his brother loves him as well. I'm delighted he's aware of it, and I'm glad it was brought to my notice. I'm grateful for Reddit's advice and support. It means a lot to me. Not a happy finish where everyone got along, but at least limits have been established and there is less danger of this occurring again.